Hello, scientist. Well, today is one of my favorite science lessons. Today we're going to make observations and ask questions. Let's get started. So today is the day that we are going to get out of the freezer that ice balloon. So today I will explore, observe, and ask questions about my ice balloon so that I can understand the types of questions that scientists ask as they observe. I will know I've got it when I can label the types of questions I asked about my ice balloon. So before we get our ice balloon, I want to share with you something that happened to me. So when you wonder about something, do you ask questions? Well, let's go back for a minute. The answer for me is yes. So let me show you something that I found. So one day I was out in the yard and I was picking up sticks to put in the trash can, and I came across a stick that looked like this that had fallen from our tree, and on it was this little guy. Now he has since then fallen off, but I'll set him back up there for you. He was on this stick. When I first picked it up, I thought, what is that critter on my stick? But then as I got closer, I could tell that it wasn't alive. It was the shell of some type of critter. Of course, I started wondering. Lots and lots of things I was wondering in my head. Where did it go? How did it get there? Why is it still stuck to the stick? Then I tried to carefully pick it off, and I was able to get it picked off. It did stick to the stick pretty good. But lots and lots of wonders. Whoops, and he just fell off again. Lots and lots of wondering. So I came inside and I shared it with my husband, and then I started wondering what it was. Well, I got on my phone and I went to the internet and I started looking. And I had noticed that lately in our neighborhood when I was walking, I could hear a cicada sound, and a sound that I thought was a cicada. So I did a little research. I found the picture on the screen that you guys are seeing of a cicada shell, and then I found a picture that looked like this of a cicada when it was alive. Now, one of the neatest things about this cicada is when I looked at its eyes, and it's going to be very hard for you guys to probably see, and I may try to just zoom it in for you, but it was almost like its eyes were still left, but it was the outline of the eyes. So I encourage you, anytime you find something interesting, if you think it's safe, pick it up, check it out. Of course, I grabbed my magnifier and I started looking up close to it because I was just so curious about it. And of course, lots of things I wondered about. I could really see its feet closely, and that just fascinated me. Its legs, I was looking at its body. So I began observing. So just like you guys heard in our target, scientists wonder, they ask questions, and sometimes they do some research to find out the answers. So I'm going to share with you today a story about a little girl and how she was a scientist. So today you're going to hear the story. I've loaded that in your Google Classroom. You're going to hear the story. And as you read, I want you to listen for things that Ada wonders about and questions she asks. So you're going to click on your story, and you're going to get to listen to it being played or being read to you, actually instead
Ada
of me
Twist,
reading it to you.
Illustrated by
Ada
David
Twist.
Roberts.
Okay, so if you just pause me so that you can go out and you can listen to the story. Okay, now that you've listened to the story, what kind of things did she wonder about, and what kind of questions did she ask? And scientists make observations, and that's where a lot of our wondering comes from. What do we see? What do we hear? What do we feel? What do we taste? And what do we smell? For instance, the cicada. I saw that cicada, but then I thought back to a sound I had been hearing in our neighborhood around the trees. Now, I couldn't really feel anything until I picked that cicada shell up. Whoops. When I picked it up, of course, I could feel something. It didn't really have a smell, and I'm definitely not going to taste this, and I'm not going to eat a cicada if I find one. But we use our five senses to make observations. So as I look at this, I'm thinking, what am I seeing? What am I feeling? And what am I hearing? And Ada, she asked lots of questions because she was wondering, and that is the great thing about scientists. So I'm going to share with you, how do I observe? Well, often we observe quietly, and that's because if it's something we're observing, we want to be able to hear the sound they're making. We want to be able to use all those five senses. We want to see, if possible, we want to taste, but that doesn't happen very often. We want to touch, smell. Remember, we want to waft, not smell really, really hard, but just gently. We want to look careful for details. We want to use our tools. We want to use that magnifier. If we need to measure something, we want to use a ruler. And we always want to be recording what we notice in our notebook or on a piece of paper. So scientists observe the world around them using their five senses. Sometimes our observations are qualitative. They do not involve a number. They might just involve a description. Or they're quantitative. That's when we measure something or we count something. When we wonder, we see. When we look at something, we think about it, and that causes some wonder for us. And that's how scientists work every single day. So today, like I told you, this is one of my favorite days. I am a little sad you're not here with me, but that's why it was very important that you get to do this at home. So what I want you to do, in just a second, I want you to pause me, and I want you to go get your ice balloon. It's in the freezer. You're going to want a plate or some type of container, and I'm going to show you what I've got. I've just got a paper plate, and I've got my ice balloon on it. I want you to grab a pair of scissors. Be really careful with scissors, though. Get a pair of scissors. Mine are over here. Get a pair of scissors. In your bag, you're going to find the other things. You're going to find toothpicks. You're going to find a paper clip. So all you need to do with that paper clip, you've got a big one and a little one. You do not want your bobby pin right now, okay? So let's make sure we leave this one. Actually, let's leave the little paper clips in there. Sorry about that. Let's just get the big paper clip, okay? Put the bobby pin, that black thing, leave it in the bag. We're going to need it later. Get out your toothpick. And when you get out this paper clip, you just want to open it because we want something to poke with. So just open it up like this. And then what you're going to do is you're going to use it to poke the ice balloon. And of course, so will the toothpick. It'll be used to poke. And like I said, you want that magnifier. Grab that out or grab it from wherever you've got it. Find a cup or a container and put some water in it. If you have a dropper, and it doesn't have to be a fancy science dropper, if you've got one of these from where you have to take some medicine, grab it. And then if you have salt, grab salt. You can get the salt shaker. It doesn't have to be the big container of salt. You're going to want a flashlight if you have a flashlight. And I don't have this listed, but this is something you could get if you want to. Food coloring. It does not matter what color. I've got in my box, I happen to have in my box blue, and I also have in my box green. So I'm going to use both of those. Now, let's just talk about food coloring. Food coloring can make a really big mess. So if you have on something nice, you might want to change. You might get food coloring on your fingers. So we'll want to wash those afterwards. but you can use food coloring today too if it's okay with your family. Don't get it out unless it's okay with your family. So pause me for a minute. Keep the screen just like this so you can make sure you've got everything. Ice balloon, something to put your ice balloon on or in. Scissors, toothpicks, and your big paper clip out of your baggie. Do not use our scissors on the ice balloon because that could be dangerous. You want to get water if you've got some water, and grab a dropper if you have dropper. If not, just get the water. Salt if you have salt. Definitely get your magnifier and get a flashlight if you have a flashlight. Okay, so now that we've got all those things gathered up, it's time to get to work. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to put that ice balloon on a flat or clear surface. Remember, I've got mine on this paper plate. You're going to just cut the balloon off. Now my balloon, I'm just going to need to peel the balloon off because it didn't really need to be cut. And we're going to peel that off so that we have exposed just the ice balloon. I'm getting mine peeled off so you can see it. Oh boy, see why this is my favorite day? And I'm going to get that little bit of balloon off. Just be careful with your ice balloon around your Chromebook or your tablet or your laptop because we don't want to get water on it. You're going to also use your science notebook. So at the top of your science notebook, I want you to write the word ice balloon. And you can look for the spelling. It's on our screen. Write ice balloon, and then we're going to put a big question mark behind it. Ice balloon questions. And take and write the date at the top also. Ice balloon questions. So as you work today, here's what I want you to do. I want you to experiment with your ice balloon. You can poke it. You can put salt on it. You can drop water on it. You can use your flashlight and look at it. You can put food coloring on it. I want you to look carefully at your ice balloon. Use that magnifier, okay? Here's an ice balloon that someone put food coloring on. So use your tools to investigate, but as you work, here's your goal. Write 6 questions down in your notebook. 6 questions. Think about a question. It's going to end with a question mark. What is something you're wondering as you work today? Write down 6. Can you write down more? Sure. But write down at least 6. Use those tools to investigate. And then when you're done, you can, I will put in your Google Classroom a video about the ice balloon. Okay, so pause me for now and go ahead and start investigating. Now that we are finished investigating, we're going to set our ice balloon to the side. We're going to add in our science notebook this paper that was in your folder that you got at open house. And this is just some information about questions. Scientists ask questions, and these are the kinds of questions that they ask. They ask questions about research, philosophizing, observation type questions, or experimental questions. So if your question, go back and look at your question, if it's research type question, this would be an example of a research question. I'm getting my questions glue in my notebook. Let me do that super quick. Then we'll come back. Okay, so if it's a research question like this, what is chewing gum made of? Could I look that up? Sure. What makes a group of planets a solar system? I could look that up. That's a research type question. Could I go somewhere and learn more information? If it's a philosophizing question, why are there viruses? What happens to a person's memory when they die? Those are a wondering question about something that's philosophical. Observation questions. How long does a caterpillar spend in its chrysalis? Could we observe a caterpillar and see how long it stays in its chrysalis? Yeah. How many water droplets fit on a penny? Could I take a penny and drop water on it and observe how many drops get on there? Yeah, so that's an observation question. Then there's experimental questions. Does the shape of a piece of clay affect whether it floats? So I could do an experiment with that. I could take a piece of clay and I could put it in water and I could experiment. Does it float? Does it sink? Do plants grow taller in the soil, in water, and sand, or sugar? So could I put a plant in some soil, then put a plant in some water, and then put a plant in some sand, and then do something kind of silly, put a plant in sugar, and then could I watch it over a period of time, maybe a week or 2 weeks, and see which one grows taller? Yeah, that's an experimental question. So what I want you to do is I want you to go back to your questions that you wrote on this page. Okay, remember, I wrote questions down on this page. And I want you to put beside them, if you think it's a question that you could do some research on, I want you to put an R beside it. If it's a philosophical type question, put a P. If it's something you could observe, put an O. And if it's experimental, like what if I put my ice balloon in the bathtub? Could that be an experiment? Well, sure. I could put an E beside that. Okay. And maybe my question was, how long does it take water to freeze? Could I research that? Sure, I could research that. Could I experiment? Could I put some water in the freezer and then see how long it takes before it freezes and count the amount of time? Sure. So maybe sometimes the question is more than one thing. If you think it's more than one thing, then put both beside it. But for the best of your ability, write down whether you think it's a research question, this is a hard word for me to say, philosophizing question, an observation question, or an experimental question. The scientist is not the person who gives the right answers. He asks or she asks the right questions. So pause me for a minute, look at your questions, and try to label them. And also, we want to glue in our notebook, if you haven't already done that, this on the back from your science folder. Okay, so now that we have written down all of our questions, here's what we're going to do. When we get to our Google Meet time, you are going to share your ice balloon observations and questions you recorded as you observed. And what kinds of questions did you write? So when you come to the Google Meet, this is how Ms. Colson's going to assess your work. I'm going to want to see your questions written in your notebook, and I may even ask you, hold up your notebook. Let me see your questions. And then I may say to you, okay, I need you to read one of your questions, and what did you label it? Did you label it an R, a P, an O, or an E? And I might even ask you why. So you're going to write down your observations and write down your questions that you recorded in your notebook and then mark them. And like I said, when we get to our Google Meet time, we will share out and learn from each other. Okay, so until we meet at Google Meet, I'll see you then. And be careful with your ice balloon. It will melt pretty fast, so you may need to get it back in the freezer if you want to experiment with it longer, and maybe you just want to leave it in the kitchen sink and see how long it takes for it to melt. I'll see you at the Google Meet.